It's 1979. Who knows what day it is anymore? Agnetha Faltskog is in her hotel room. The other three members of ABBA, Frida, Benny, and Björn, were just yesterday sunning on a yacht and are still relatively close. And she feels isolated. Always shy, the sensitive Agnetha has buckled under the pressure to break ABBA in the United States, who has not yet warmed to ABBA in the way the rest of the world has. Agnetha has wept every day on this tour, grieving for the time spent away from her daughter and son in Sweden. And also,
we always told the media that it was a happy divorce, which of course was a front. Obviously, we all know that there is no such thing as a happy divorce. There is no such thing as a happy divorce.
We don't want to discuss it anymore. At least not I. At least not I. At least not I. At least not I.
I've gone through an extremely painful depression, and it did affect me when he met Lena. But when he remarried, I cried. It hurt. It hurt a lot. And it was weird that he had found someone else so soon. Welcome back to part 2 of our ABBA, The Visitors reac-umentary. This is part 2 where we're going to go into the behind the scenes. And if you want to see my first time reaction, that'll be up here in a little card, or I'll have it in the description box in the bottom. But let's get started.
The Visitors.
The boys started to write in the end of this year, I think.
The beginning, you mean?
Yes, the beginning of course.
81.
Yes. And then we started the recordings in April.
So it's hard work.
Yes, it's always hard work.
It takes almost a year to get a complete album.
And of course, just 4 weeks before the initial recording sessions for The Visitors, Benny and Frida had also announced their decision to go their separate ways. And it was under these conditions that on March 16th, 1981, ABBA and their 4 trusted backing musicians, Lasse Wallander, guitar, Rutger Gunnarsson, bass, Ola Brunkert, drums, and Uka Sundqvist, percussion, all entered Polar Music Studios and started work together on the first batch of backing tracks. I was personally shocked after my first time reaction to The Visitors to hear that this was the first album to be recorded digitally, because in particular, the title track, The Visitors, sounds so warm, which is a hallmark of analog recording. And I found this quote from Michael Tretow, who engineered The Visitors. Digital recording cut out all the hiss, but it also meant that the sounds were sharply cut off below a certain level. The sound simply became too clean, so I had to find ways of compensating for that, he said. Tretow also had difficulties navigating his way around the new 32-track digital recorder purchased for Polar. The first 3 tracks had already been put down on analog. This meant that Tretow had to transfer all subsequent tracks from digital to analog and back again to avoid variable quality. So y'all, that means I was right. The Visitors song was recorded analog. I'm pretty proud of myself for catching that. The Visitors is a little bit different from the rest of the tracks, Frida said. The chorus has tightly compressed vocals from all 4 ABBA members, which is slightly reminiscent of 1978's single Summer Night City. Mentioned that the Cooper time cube was more than likely used not only on Frida's vocals in The Visitors, but also on her hit There's Something Going On. You know you've changed and you're worse than life. UAD's Cooper time cube was used to great effect on Rufus and Chaka Khan's hit Tell Me Something Good. As well as the song Lowrider by War. Take a little trip with me. The Visitors' lyrics have been interpreted in many ways. Some listeners have thought about mental illness and the fear of being committed to an asylum, while another interpretation has a singer trapped in a haunted house. Still another have thought the song was about an alien invasion and abduction, which I indeed thought as well. In fact, I created this cheesy bit of alien silliness when I did my The Visitors reaction, and I got quite a few comments correcting me on the interpretation. But I found this quote from Frida, who said, "It's a philosophical song. Anybody can have his own interpretation of it, and then it won't be misunderstood." So I'm gonna consider my bit of alien ridiculousness Frida approved. At the time of the album's release, Bjorn did not want to explain what the song was about, letting the listener work it out for themselves. But in 1994, Bjorn admitted that he was trying to imagine the situation of Soviet dissidents living in fear. "I had a clear vision of that apartment, lots of bookcases on the wall. Then, suddenly, the knock at the door." Phil Collins, producer of Frida's 1982 solo album Something's Going On, complained in the press that ABBA should have released The Visitors as a single rather than Head Over Heels, which was the second single release after One of Us. Head Over Heels is very synthesizer heavy. Benny was certainly using his Yamaha GX1, but other synthesizers rumored to be included on the album were the Roland Jupiter 8, Yamaha GX1, and a couple of Moogs, the Poly Moog and the Mini Moog. It also has some of my favorite harmonies from the album. But relations were not smooth between Agnetha and Frida. Both strong personalities, apparently they'd always clashed.
And the same in the studio.
Yeah. We were always standing in front of each other with a mic in between, and we had very, very funny times.
According to Agnetha, that always happens when people are together. I am a fiery type of person who easily flies off the handle, but I easily get over it as well. Anni-Frid, on the other hand, has a thick skin. She can take a lot until she boils over. But when we fall out, then we really do. And I hate that these women were always pitted up against each other. The fact is, Agnetha is an Aries and Frida is a Scorpio. And this can be a tough combo. I know this because my sister is an Aries and I am a Scorpio. In fact, my sister shares the same birthday, April 5th, with Agnetha. And me and my sister can have a fantastic time. But when we fight, it's nuclear, because we have a very different way of dealing with things. But this dynamic can be magical if things can be worked out.
Compatible voices, because Agnetha was very punchy and Frida had this hi-fi quality to it, because it was both very bright and very soft, bassy in itself. So they were very complementary to each other, these two voices.
Sometimes when they sang in unison, Agnetha perhaps going down a little and Frida struggling to get up to her, there was a certain sound to it. It was amazing.
The video for this song cast Frida as a society lady, paired with Björn as her long-suffering husband, followed her through shop after shop on the streets of Stockholm, with Frida modeling many designer outfits. All those clothes I borrowed from a very close friend of mine. Her name is Lilabelle Akrona, and she has done a superb job in choosing exactly the clothes that suit my taste. Bjorn wrote in 2014, "I wanted to write something about them, what they went through, something that gave credit to my friend's courage and dignity."
As I remember it, Bjorn took advantage of what happened in our lives to write his more elaborate lyrics from that later period of our... I suppose that occupied his mind a lot at that time. because it's not very easy to split up, is it?
When all is said and done, saw Frida giving words and emotions, detailing all of her sorrow and pain, not only for herself, but for all of those who had gone through a separation. The backing track the group had first recorded was completely changed after Frida had laid down her powerful and emotional vocals. As Frida herself later recalled, all my sadness was captured on that song.
When you're down and lying on the floor.
There's absolutely no reason in the world for us to begin to write political texts, Bjorn said in 1976. He had obviously changed his mind by 1981. Soldiers is an extremely political song. It talks of the fear of approaching war, which is a real concern for the world in the early 80s, with consuming Cold War tensions between superpowers, the USA and the USSR. Björn was usually reluctant to discuss the meaning of his lyrics, leaving them for the listener to interpret for themselves. However, Soldiers was one song that he wanted to make sure the message was understood. Soldiers is not about ordinary fighting men, but about those on high rank, those military men who make decisions that politicians don't even know about. Agnetha agreed with Björn's sentiments. I see the lyrics very seriously, and I think every human being is a bit afraid of what could happen in the world. The situation doesn't feel too good. It's about the fear of what can happen. And this can be a sign of growing maturity, which you can definitely tell on this album. Soldiers is another song I received a few comments about in my reaction regarding what I said about it being in 6/8 time signature. Oh, this is 6/8. And there's actually a lively debate about this online regarding whether this song is in 3/4 or 6/8. The time signatures are similar. Generally, songs that have a faster tempo are 6/8 and slower ones are 3/4. But some people count this as 177 beats per minute, while others count it halftime at 89 beats per minute. But I managed to find a quote from the song's drummer, Per Lindvall. He designed the drum pattern in the song's verses and managed to disguise the fact that the song is in 6/8 time, while evoking both military drums and distant gunfire. This makes it easy to groove to, but hard to waltz to because there isn't an accent every 3 notes. But this is what gives it its unique rhythm. One of Us was the lead single from The Visitors. Unusually, the single was actually released in Sweden 1 week after the album, even later in some other territories. For all previous albums, the lead single would be released 2 or 3 months in advance. But it had been a tough year for ABBA, and they had floated the idea of releasing When All Is Said and Done in August, but in the end, no single was released until the album was completed. One of Us would be ABBA's last major international hit single, peaking at number 3 in the UK, but not released in the US until 1983 to promote the compilation The Singles. The song was another semi-autobiographical song and sung, of course, by Agnetha. It also includes a mandolin credit played by the mysterious combo named The Three Boys. Björn explains, that was just a stupid name we thought up. They don't exist as a group. In other countries, Eastern European ones especially, they call groups like the Three Comrades or something like that. We were just making fun of that.
Who are you? The Three Amigos! I let the music speak with no restraints.
But we had musicians in the studio.
Yeah.
We had another guitar player and a bass and drums.
Yep.
The 5 of us would sit in the studio. I would write a demo lyric.
Mm-hmm.
And Benny and I would play the song, and gradually the guys would, come in, and we'd be doing that until we felt, well, this might be something.
Okay.
We would stop, say to the bass player, "Oh, remember that? That's great." And they were so disciplined, so that then he'd stick to that.
Okay.
for that part of the song.
Right.
And that's how we would work. And eventually, I would
get out and get up here into the studio. And it would continue until we had a basic backing track. One guitar, bass, drums, and a piano or a synth of some kind later. We would have that basic backing track, and then Benny would do overdubs once the synths came into our world. I mean, there was, so many possibilities. And once we felt this is what this song is about. That's when I would write the lyric. Not until then, because I had done, and I had regretted it because it was always wrong. Because the song would change its atmosphere, its genre sometimes, and altogether. So
because of the actual sound of the track, right?
Yeah,
it would have a certain vibe to it that would suggest a mood for the lyric.
Yeah, not only a mood, it would conjure up like images sometimes in me when I would play it back, again and again, because I trusted in the fact that it would tell me what it's about, either in the form of a line, a hook, or in the form of something happening.
That's what I Let the Music Speak is about, the act of writing music itself, and its lyrics are a peek inside Björn's mind and how that process takes place. As a singer, early on, Frida sang jazz.
Varje liten våg dansade mot strand, en skumvit strand, och det var en ledig dag.
But also American standards, including Cole Porter. So she was perfect to take on I Let the Music Speak. Her vocals are not only dramatic, they're impassioned and emotional. The song features an impressively convincing, for the time, warm synth string ensemble, and the song opens with a rolling and wistful piano figure. Flautist Jan Kling provided the woodwind filigree.
Go on, flute!
For Benny and Björn, this song foreshadowed the musical Chess that they would write the music for. In fact, they said if it hadn't gone on the album, it would have gone in Chess. By the way, would you guys want me to react to the Chess cast album? I'm really curious about it.
All right, now one of you guys told me about the shocking nature of 2 for the price of 1, which I find hilariously shocking.
Some of you said it was about a man who was a cleaner in a local train station, but he didn't tell me that he finds himself happening upon an intriguing ad in a personals column offering 2 for the price of 1, which just happens to be a mother and daughter. What?
This is our last chance to get laid before janitor college. You think I don't know that?
Yep, and they offer themselves up for a threesome. The bass part in the chorus happened accidentally when it was run through a delay pedal. The song ends with a brass band-like fanfare courtesy of Benny and his synthesizers. Allegedly, real trombone, trumpet, and tuba are all audible on the released recording, and the players were not credited on the Visitors' album sleeve. I definitely have to applaud the fact that this is so convincing. I would never have considered that it wasn't real. Marching band. And especially when you consider the strings at the end of Visitors and the string arrangement in I Let the Music Speak, it's all so impressive because these are not samples. And in fact, samplers wouldn't even be that convincing for a very while yet. This is also Björn's first vocals since Does Your Mother Know on Ulveus in 1979. I've been told by a few people that Bjorn was pretty sensitive about his vocals, not as strong as the rest of the songs, but that's because the other songs are so great. And I think his sort of casual vocal is very charming, and it really works with the song.
Please not until the day when something specially rare.
But from the comments, I can tell people either love this song or they hate it. One thing all ABBA members discussed in interviews is emotion. All members have mentioned it in their interviews. There's a lot that goes into making great pop music. Making pop music that lasts requires true emotion. When it comes to ABBA, people take that for granted. They could have continued making happy songs about universal topics. I believe they needed to follow their hearts. In truth, they were maturing. As their children grew, politics and the future of the world became more important. Slipping Through My Fingers is exactly about its inspiration and most likely their most autobiographical. Bjorn wrote the lyric after seeing his and Agnetha's daughter, Linda, heading off to school in the morning. As she turned to say goodbye, with an absent-minded smile, the lyric tells us, he was hit by the fact that she was growing up, that this was the first step in her moving away from her parents, and that the time together was short. Agnetha takes lead vocal on the song. It's very true to do. Although they are more or less Björn's thoughts, they are mine too, I suppose. I think he's captured them very well. In the second verse, she duets with herself, putting on a slightly childish voice in the harmony line to sound like she's singing with her child.
Sleep in our eyes, her and me, at the breakfast table.
Listeners, including myself, have thought she was duetting with her daughter. Slipping Through My Fingers was the first song from the Visitors album to be released on a picture disc single and matching album as part of a series of records given away as prizes by Coca-Cola in Japan in 1981. The two records were little known to ABBA's worldwide fan base at the time, but today they are prized collectibles. Interestingly, New Jeans, the K-pop group, just did a song a couple months ago for Coca-Cola. So it just shows you that lots of stuff changes, but some things really stay the same. And in that regard, at the end of this song is the ticking of time with your child, which bleeds into our next song, the last song, like an angel passing through my room. The ticking becomes a countdown of perhaps life itself or death itself. It comes courtesy of Benny's Mini Moog and was perhaps the hardest song on the album to create. A few attempts were made, but nothing felt quite right. In the end, a more naked lullaby approach was taken. And that sometimes happens when you're recording. Sometimes if you're working on a song that isn't working, suddenly simplicity feels fresher. But in 2000, Madonna recorded a cover version with William Orbit around the time of the album Music. And its more fleshed out version really shows how great the songwriting of this song is.
Like the embers as they one prolonged goodbye, and it all comes back to me tonight in our room, like an angel passing through my
I really love this song, but is it wrong that I'd love to hear Frida's vocal on a more fleshed out version sometime? Madonna's version is almost Baroque. I still love this version too. Frida recalls the recording with fondness. Like an angel passing through my room is full of good memories for me. We were the only two, Benny and I, in the studio alone with the tick-tick of the metronome sound. I love that sort of song. Despite declaring the recording exciting, Agnetha had reservations. It's a strange number because you wait for something that never comes. Or does it? The song title inspired art director Rune Sundqvist for his sleeve of the Visitors album. He remembered a giant painting of the angelic figure Eros in artist Julius Kroberg's atelier. He also thought an angel could be a visitor, tying in with the album's title. ABBA was duly photographed in front of the painting, standing separately, perhaps subtly indicating the state of affairs within the group. The location has become a popular attraction for ABBA fans, although it's rarely open to the public. I myself have seen the album cover for years, even though I've never heard the album itself, and thought that it related to aliens, even though it doesn't. But the album looks so mysterious, and you could tell that there's something going on. Yes, Frida, exactly. Something mysterious. But I totally agree that it ties in the two ends of the album and really makes this complete package. And many were disappointed by the album's showing since it wasn't their biggest hit. It's interesting someone like me can come along years later and see this amazing complete package and not really have any history with ABBA and see only the mastery of a group at the peak of its powers. Oh my god, you guys, this was so interesting, so fun. I really loved getting into the thick of it. This got so much more involved than I thought. And I'm just so glad to know more about ABBA. It gives me even more respect for what they do. Anyway, if you'd like to see another video, there'll be one right here. Or I also have my reac-umentary playlist linked down right here. Or you can subscribe to me right here if you feel so inclined. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I hope we get to see you next time. Popcorn Philosopher over and out.